Why do you think that Liz Truss won this race?
Well, in the end, because she proved to be the more adept politician of the two. It's summarised above all by the fact that she had a very clear strapline to her campaign. It was tax cuts, not handouts. We'll see what happens to the second half of that strapline, but she certainly still seems to be very committed to the first half. And that, in a sense, gave Tory members a very clear message about what she was about. Rishi Sunak, in contrast, lots of quite complex, nuanced arguments. Certainly, perhaps interesting if you were attending a university seminar, but there was never, ever a simple, straightforward message that said, this is what Rishi is about. Now, to that, there were undoubtedly a couple of other things that made Mr. Sunak's life more difficult. The first is that, this Tory leadership contest demonstrated the angst that there is in a substantial section of the Conservative Party about the fact that the government under Boris Johnson found itself heading for record levels of government spending and record levels of taxation. That's not where we expect the Conservatives to be. Mr. Sunak, of course, happened to be the Chancellor who was in place when that happened. It happened largely as a result of COVID, but it has therefore meant that the angst that many Tory members have been feeling about that was basically heaped upon Mr. Sunak. Yeah. Third thing, of course, is that Ms. Truss kind of indicated to the at least substantial proportion of Conservative members who didn't think that Mr. Johnson should go, that she stayed loyal to him, whereas Mr. Sunak, it was his resignation along with that, with Sajid Javid, that precipitated the downfall of Boris Johnson's government. So put those three things together, and Mr. Sunak was struggling also because he'd never really fully recovered from the whole argument about his wife's non-dom status and his own green card in the United States.
It's interesting, though, you talk about her keeping it simple effectively, and that she had these clear straplines, tax cuts, not handouts. But look at her inbox, because she hasn't really tackled the cost of living crisis. She has been accused of being out of touch with ordinary people, and she hasn't really told us how she's going to deal with the National Health Service. Deliver might be that strapline. Will she? Can she?
Well, that is now the $64,000 question, and there is no doubt that both she and Mr. Sunak have had to shift their position during the course of this campaign, because what started off as a debate between them about the best way to manage the economy macroeconomically, should we be concentrating on inflation or should we be concentrating on growth, got overtaken by the fact that all of a sudden, actually, there was this real cost of living crisis that, in particular, above all, was going to be precipitated by energy price rises. And I think we are expecting later this week Ms. Truss to end up doing something very similar to what all the opposition parties already support and a number of the energy companies themselves, that is to stop the rise in prices. Now, interestingly, it may be that she finds that a more useful step, A, because it means she won't have to put any more money directly into people's pockets, money that would have to be, that might be characterized as being a handout, so it helps her out politically there. It's also possible, this is getting into technical detail, that maybe she'll find a way of doing this that doesn't actually put the borrowing on the government's books. There's certainly some discussion about the power companies taking out loans which the government simply back. Now, that would be another way of Ms. Truss giving the impression she's not increasing government spending while she is reducing taxes. That said, against the backdrop of all of this, the big, perhaps, worry that they may need to have is that, of course, during the COVID pandemic, the markets were very benign. They were willing to fund the increased spending that the UK government was engaged in. It's not as clear now that the governments are going to be willing to fund increased spending, certainly at current interest rates. It could help to put interest rates up, and therefore the effect of the debt burden. And of course, what's also true is the value of the pound has been going down. And one thing it's well worth bearing in mind is that no government has managed to survive if it experiences a run on the pound.
So much to think about. Professor Curtice, thank you very much.